Poetry is when emotion has found its thought and the thought has found words, said Robert Frost. Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold is a rendering of his emotions came out of his concerns over the Victorian society. First, let's learn about the author. Dover Beach is one among the famous work by Matthew Arnold. Yes, guys, please focus on the spelling. He was a literary critic and a writer, also a religious reformist who believed in the changes in society. His poetry revolved around contemporary issues or the major concerns of the Victorian era. So, what were they? The major problem of the Victorian society was the opposition of ideas between religion and science. Both were trying to get the upper hand in vain. As a result, the society disintegrated into a state of disillusionment. Further, it lamented about the loss of innocence. We can find a trace of longing in his poem. Now let's look into the form and literary devices used in the poem. There are four stanzas with a different distribution of lines, and it follows the iambic pentameter. The poem follows the style of a dramatic monologue. Many literary devices are also used by the poet to create depth in the verses. The devices are assonance. It helps to decorate a poem by repeating vowel sounds in the same line. Alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds in the same line. And enjambment, which is a device used in the form of a verse that moves on to the next line. Allusions, which help to create an implied reference to a character, and symbolism, which is used to signify ideas. Further, he also employs simile, which is a figure of speech used to compare two opposite things to give it a different meaning. And lastly, imagery helps the reader to employ all the five senses to get a better understanding of the poem. At the start of the poem, the poet is standing on the cliff of Dover Beach admiring the sea's beauty and the atmosphere's serenity. He is between the French coast and the England cliff. The major symbol in this stanza is the sea. It is in all glory. The tide is full and moonlight bright. Contrary to this, the light at the lighthouse is flickering. By contrasting these two, the poet is emphasizing on how nature is stable above all human authority and is always a source of inspiration and peace. It is the demonstration of the sovereign God and its grandeur, while the flickering light at the lighthouse represents the flaw in the human ways and also the loss of faith of people in God. The poet draws our attention to the major theme of the poem in these initial lines itself. He is addressing the dilemma of the Victorian age, the question of what to believe in, whether to believe in science or trust in the omnipotent source of life. He also hints about what his choice is, and the rest of the poem reveals us to his decision. In the next few lines, the poet is invoking his companion to enjoy the beauty of the night and feel the shift felt by the sea. A picturesque description is given by the poet, giving the reader a sensory experience where the breeze is felt and the tide is viewed. He feels that the waves have a note of eternal sadness in it, lamenting the loss of faith of the humankind. From these lines, we understand the poet's belief. He is lamenting over the change in the thought process of people. His sadness over the loss of faith is what he identifies in the waves that reaches and recedes the shore. In the second stanza, we see Arnold allowing his mind go back to the annals of history, and he is drifting towards Sophocles, a tragic Greek philosopher, and remembers how the philosopher witnessed sadness while looking at the Aegean Sea. By retracing the moment from the past, the poet brings more significance upon his views. His belief that advancement ignoring the harmonious existence between humanity and nature can be catastrophic and pain evoking is validated by the sorrow of the philosopher. Further, the northern sea, which was a symbol of calmness in the first stanza, becomes a symbol of ebb and flow of human misery here. The poet is urging his listeners to reconsider our ways of existence, to give a moment to the sounds around, to attend nature in order to listen what it has to say so that our steps can be rectified. The poet becomes more vocal about his thought in the third stanza, and his concern about a human race not having faith in God is heightened here. Here he speaks about how once the faith of all people were firm and unflinching, while now that space is taken over by doubt and speculations. He feels like all guards are lost, and if people indulge in their ignorance, tragedy is imminent. In the last stanza, he is addressing his companion and renders to the reader the thoughts of the poet on his dilemma. He is saying that despite all that is around, the only cure in the doubt driven world is selfless love. It is only by the practice of this virtue an individual can find his or her living. The world looks new, like a land of dreams, daring and inviting at once. To survive in this new world, the only armor could be to be loyal in love. The advancements and technologies sadly pave way to more struggles and sorrows. It enables armies to clash by night. In such a world, peace can only be drawn by upholding virtues. The poem ends on a strong note, an invocation to be a beam of light burning out of love to lit the path for those who are staggering in the dark. The major symbol in the poem is the sea. It showcases the worth of creation, a symbol of greatness and of might. The light which flickers at the lighthouse, on the other hand, symbolizes the wavering of humanity resulting from the breach of faith. The major themes in Dover Beach are the religious shift, the significance of nature, and love. The era in which the poem was written is marked by the change in the mindset of human beings due to scientific developments. The shift which totally neglects faith is what concerns the poet. The lack of having an anchor is scary. It is what that causes the shift. The scientific developments shook the root of religion, but was not enough to take its place either, leaving humanity displaced. It is by the imagery of sea the poet explains the religious shift. Along with this, he speaks about the significance of nature as well. Beach and the sea are the representations of nature in the whole poem. According to the poet, nature is beautiful since eternity and will remain like that. It also has the potential to feel the sadness and happiness of humankind as the developments is taking place. Nature also serves as a thought provoking factor for the poet. And the last theme is love. The poet is hoping that the faith in religion, in humanity, in brotherhood will be restored by the love people have. He feels like love alone is the key to restore what has been lost. It is the dire need of the hour to surpass the despair which engulfed the Victorian society. To conclude, Dover Beach is a poem that describes the juncture the poet is at. It is just like a middle ground, like the title of the poem, between the shores of France and the cliffs of England, between the difference of opinion in a blur. The poet urges his companion to remain in love, and the plea is urgent, which highlights the despair of times. In short, this verse is a reminder to live a life bound by love, to be a certainty in the midst of uncertainties. Thank you.